Hello everybody, going to do another drive time video cast while I'm on my way to Pelham Bay Park in the Bronx. Got to put on the cool shades. Looking good is always more important than feeling good, so you know how that goes. But we need to talk. Every married man's and every guy in a steady relationship's least favorite phrase, we need to talk. But we do need to talk because of the Jeffrey Epstein story. My inbox, my social media accounts, my YouTube channel have been just swamped with traffic. People wanting to tell them, want me to tell them what's going on. What do I think? This is some kind of conspiracy. I see all these conspiracies talked about on social media, and yeah, I know, I saw the story. Jeffrey Epstein in a cell by himself in the Metropolitan Correctional Facility killed himself, and so he is now no longer able to talk, as he is, according to the official story, dead, and he can't name anybody in his case. And of course, the mainstream media is doing what it does best in turning your mind into jello, distracting you, calling other people names, using logical fallacies, all this kind of stuff. But there are a couple of concepts that, of course, they are not bothering to mention, not bothering to discuss in any way. And the main thing is, and I'm going to go macro on you right away, right? Here's what I'm talking about. This is how I talk to students all year long, and young teenagers in the bad neighborhood school get it. Adults whose minds have been turned into gravy by mainstream media and Netflix don't get. Here's the thing. They think you are a cockroach. If nothing else, the Epstein story shows the lack of respect, the contempt that they have for you. The people at the top, the people in control, the people who are running the United States, they have no respect for you. You are a cockroach. You are a pest. You are nothing compared to them. You are nothing. You're a thing. As I work on my finances and dollars in, dollars out, and what am I going to do with this amount of money, and where am I going to transfer this, and what do I need? You know, I'm thinking about dollars. I'm thinking about digits on a screen. I'm not thinking about people. That mindset on chess pieces or checkers pieces, or trying to balance my checkbook, or lower balances in certain areas of my financial world. That's how they think of you. You are a thing. You are bacteria. How do we know this? Well, here's the official story. Jeffrey Epstein, who I can't find out if he was on suicide watch or not. The story seemed to be he was, because he had been in a cell with an ex-cop. The story gets very fuzzy. He was on suicide watch and then he wasn't. I challenge you to figure out if he was or not. But in a government-run jail in the center of the universe, with cameras, Jeffrey Epstein was able to kill himself without an interruption, without any problems. The camera or cameras happened to malfunction at that time, and he is no longer of this world. That's what you're supposed to believe. The camera malfunctioning part is the thing, is kind of like the tip-off. To me, that's really one of the main instances of this case. It shows how low you are on the totem pole. Let's come up with a story like this, and you're supposed to believe it. And all of the mainstream sources, or actually let me rephrase, because it's not mainstream media anymore. They're not in the mainstream. They're in the mainstream because they're powerful and wealthy corporations, but they're not mainstream opinion anymore. It's not mainstream news. But the corporate media, let me rephrase, has you in a position where they call you names if you're skeptical of that story. Everybody from Ben Shapiro to MSNBC to Rachel Maddow to CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS, New York Times, all this kind of stuff. The New York Times story, by the way, on this was particularly hysterical. This fake, somber note on the tragedy of Jeffrey Epstein killing himself in jail. It was a high comedy, let me tell you. So that's my first angle of attack, that we are cockroaches. We're vermin to these people. Let's put this story out there and not only expect everybody to buy it without a question, without a comment, without any skepticism, but not only expect it to buy it. If people are a little bit dubious, call them names. Those people who are dubious, they should get raked over the coals. Call them names like conspiracy theorist, which conveniently the FBI has just determined that conspiracy theorists are a threat to national security. The memo just came out this past week. Funny how this all happens all at once. Just coincidence, of course. My second angle on this is one that Stefan Molyneux brought up, but I thought of this as well, where, the tip-off was they kept trying to tie Epstein to Trump. Because Trump wasn't supposed to win, I've talked to you about this before, he just wasn't supposed to be the winner. The corporations that had stood to gain obscene amounts of money and power didn't get what they want, particularly the media corporation. So they have Trump derangement syndrome. So they've been trying to tie this Epstein character to Trump for months. And that was the tip-off. And then Molyneux brought up a great point, and it's the same one I thought of. Well, wait a minute. Imagine if Epstein were arrested in a Republican stronghold. I don't know, let's pick the most Republican city in Texas, with a Republican government and a Republican warden and a Republican staff running the state house and all this kind of stuff. And Epstein were a huge donor to Republicans. That's the key. And then he committed suicide and could not name any top-flight Republicans. What would the corporate media have said? Interesting, right? Think about that. But Epstein was a Democratic National Committee, DNC, Democrat, Clinton bundler of funds and connector of power. And it was all in New York City and connected to high-end Democratic Party machine politics. And you get the dumbest conspiracy of all time. No, that's not true. The second dumbest conspiracy of all time. And you're just supposed to quietly go along with it. According to our overlords, you'd better just buy it. See how that works? Interesting point. I thought so. Another part is that Epstein was the only person on the case. He was named only the Miami Herald and Cernovich. Mike Cernovich did brave reporting with this Epstein stuff, and it's just Jeffrey Epstein. There's no one else charged. There's no one else named. So the case is now over. Epstein won't, is dead, can't talk. I'm not sure kind of wording to use there. And so nothing more to discuss. And you'll see people on Twitter like, the case now can go forward unimpeded because they can search his house without worrying about his privacy. But that doesn't make any sense. Search his house. What do you mean? To go against, to add to the charges against somebody who's already dead? There's nothing to search for. The case was against Epstein, and he was obviously not going to testify against himself. He was going to have to, they were going to have to build a case, and he was going to have to name names. Now that can't happen. He was the only name on the docket. And so you have full stop, end of legal probe, end of story. And apparently there was a fire on Epstein's island already. And so whatever evidence is there, you can write it in blood that it has been destroyed. So I keep coming back to a unit that I do with students every year, the last few minutes of this short talk. Just us as co-conspirators. I do a unit every year on justice. And I mentioned that it's kind of a play on words as just us. Because we see now in the United States there is no justice. What are you going to do? You're going to run to government for justice? You mean the government that couldn't keep one person in a cell in the financial capital of the world safe? Couldn't keep him alive? You're going to run to those people for justice? Are you serious? And it's one thing about working in the black community that they understand. We in the black community understand this with tripwire sensitivity. Because the black community has been on the receiving end of government malfeasance for decades. And you realize that there is no justice. That it is just us. Just us, those people, whoever they are, who are connected to powerful people. Right? The idea of equality, equal before the law is ridiculous. They're laughing at you. They're laughing at us. In case you were wondering. This ridiculous story, killed himself in a cell, camera malfunctioned. Notice people are staying away from the warden. Look up the warden in that place, and you'll see why no one's going really hard up against her. And look a little bit. Take 2 minutes and look into where she came from and how she got that position. And no one's going to go after the warden. Not in a million years. So, that's it. All the people that had something to lose in this Epstein case can breathe a sigh of relief. They're wealthy, they're powerful, they're connected to Democratic National Committee politics. They're safe. Imagine if you or I, or particularly pick any guy in your family, and he did and got called on the carpet for what Jeffrey Epstein did in Florida. Epstein got a year of probation and club fed, barely went to prison for underage trafficking, sex trafficking, and soliciting prostitution in Florida. Underage. That was in 2006. It's 2019. I know for a fact I would still be in prison if I'd gotten busted for that. And I think you would be too. Any person we know, every person, particularly every guy you know, would have been put in an orange suit, stuffed into a car, and been in jail for the rest of his life. But not them. For them, it's justice, but it's just us. They're not going to lose a thing. And no one's going to pay. So the Epstein thing is a big red beacon for you to know what you're dealing with. I'll leave you with this. I was talking about this with my brother, and it lets us know what the country really has become. The fake America is really kind of a farce. It's something of a joke. And when you look for 2.5 minutes into this case, it tells you exactly why.